Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, in response to the new negotiation power for HHS to negotiate fair prices, it's obvious that Big Pharma has launched a strategic campaign. They filed at least 9 lawsuits that we know of. They have started a very costly PR campaign. They're instigating political hearings like this. But I have to say, Americans are seeing through it. They know now, they've watched for so many years how they're gouged in their drug prices. They pay more than other people across the world. They are bombarded with advertising constantly, and they probably wonder, well, why don't you put that money into R&D to develop? They know what the executive pay is. It's just exorbitant. So, Dr. Kesselheim, why, put this into context financially for the pharmaceutical industry. Why are they working so aggressively to halt fair price negotiation?
Well, I mean, I think that for pharmaceutical companies that have very successful products that have made billions and billions of dollars over the course of almost a decade, the easiest way for them to make more money would be to invest in trying to extend the exclusivity period as long as possible for those products. And that is, in fact, what they do by building up large thickets of patents around those products and finding new formulations of them, or new, or hopping to other versions of them. And they try to extend their revenue streams for as long as possible. And so I think that because the Inflation Reduction Act introduces some measure of fair pricing after 9 to 13 years on the market and reduces that option, I think that makes the drug companies nervous that easy way of getting additional revenues is going to be lost.
I mean, this system is, when we're talking about incentives to develop life-saving drugs, it would seem the last thing that you would do would be to prohibit HHS from negotiating fair prices and their ability to take into account the clinical benefits of those drugs. The system right now, it just says, okay, Big Pharma, just sell those high-cost drugs for as much as possible and pump out the advertising so the consumers are constantly advertising for them. I mean, there's got to be an important incentive now that HHS has to take into account the clinical benefit and the effectiveness of these drugs. Good for the government and good for patients. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that that's a really important part of this discussion, is that the IRA doesn't make Medicare pay rock bottom prices across the board for every drug. What it does is it creates a process for negotiating and a drug based on the clinical benefits that it provides, what clinical alternatives there are, whether or not it's made back its research and development already, whether or not it addresses an unmet medical need, takes all of those into account in trying to come to a fair price that is more aligned with the benefits of the drug. And in doing so ensures that actual innovation will be paid for quite handsomely, and drugs that don't offer a lot of benefits will not. And so as a result, I think it moves innovation into more effective, more useful areas.
And isn't it something that Big Pharma cries poor on research and development when it's the American taxpayer that largely funds basic science and research in this country through the NIH? Can you talk about how, or quantify how much we're already benefiting the big drug companies based on how we fund NIH?
Sure. I mean, NIH provides a massive subsidy for pharmaceutical companies by supporting basically all basic science and a lot of translational science as well in its $60 billion or so a year budget. Studies have shown that basically every FDA-approved drug can be linked back to NIH funding, and we've shown in some of our work that about a quarter of drugs can even be linked to NIH funding in their late stages of development. In some cases, quite substantially. And what that investment does, is it identifies new areas for products. It de-risks a lot of the science at the riskiest times, so that when drug companies do get involved later in the process, there is less risk involved. And then, obviously they do invest substantial sums at those times, but it's less risky and it's closer to the development of the product. And so I think that all innovation ultimately relates back to some of these public, to this public funding.
Thank you very much. I yield back.